Coming to Mountainview, I would say my relationship with Jesus was pretty weak. I did not grow up in a church family, didn't have any connection to that as a kid other than through my grandmother who would take me to church, but it was like once a summer when I was a kid, so it wasn't a consistent thing. And honestly, before really, committing with our family to coming to church, I didn't really think I needed it. I didn't think it had a place in my life.
When I was a kid, I went to the Roman Catholic Church. Something had happened where we decided to stop going, and I was very reluctant to go back. So that portion of my life was kind of missing, and I always felt it, but it was kind of ignored. But as time went on, it was like God was dropping little breadcrumbs. Say, hey, you've got kids now, you've got a wonderful family, it's time to come back.
Similar to Dave, I grew up in a Catholic church family. We went every single week with my grandma. That was kind of our thing. And she passed away when I was in 8th grade, and it was kind of like a halt for our family. We still loved Jesus. It kind of turned into you can be a Christian and a follower without attending the church.
I describe the life of before Jesus as a life with challenges, a life with probably worries. I probably was trying to find solutions on my own instead of looking for him. Well, this happened when I have the chance to go back to my country to see my family. Unfortunately, when I was there, my father passed away. That particular trip for me was, I feel like God was preparing me and giving me the opportunity and chance to reconnect with my dad and my family.
So at the end of January 2024, I had a stroke, or I guess like 3, as a result of a stomach bug, and I got an artery dissection, led to a clot, and I had a stroke on both sides of my cerebellum and one in my brainstem. So initially I couldn't speak or walk or see. I had a lot of double vision, a lot of dizziness.
It was difficult to see, my wife, only 33 years old at the time, unable to, put 2 feet forward and walk. It was a challenge to see that.
So I had a lot of overstimulation and fatigue, and so even just like having a conversation with someone was like if someone either took me out to coffee and we sat in their car because I couldn't handle going in a coffee shop yet. Like I couldn't really interact with people a lot, so I was really lonely and couldn't be with the kids, which felt I'd been a stay-at-home mom like every day with them, and then suddenly I wasn't with them at all.
Yeah, so I mean, it really felt like I, the wife that I knew, that I've loved and known, all of a sudden she was, gone. Even though I didn't lose my wife, but we lost some of what, a life we thought was going to look like as mid-30s people with 2 kids. And some things won't ever be the same.
I think we take for granted that things can just change in an instant. Like you can be going along. We had both talked about we were in a pretty good season, it felt like with parenting and Greg's work and our community and faith, and it was that kind of season of, wow, this is kind of, we're living in abundance, and then it just changed very quickly.
We all have a story. And we have our own experiences, and each one of us are on a journey through our life that your journey is different from the other person's journey. Your story is different from the person you're sitting next to. Some of you are here because you were invited this morning and you thought, maybe I'm soft exploring the claims of Jesus, or I want to see what this church thing is all about, or the person that invited me, like they're just different and I want to see why. Some of you are here, you've been following Jesus for decades. Maybe you're here because you've been bored with church for a really long time. But that it's like Easter and Christmas are when we're supposed to come. Some of you are on fire for Jesus, and you're so excited to be here this morning. And some of you are angry or frustrated at God, and this is the first time you've stepped into the doors of a church building in years. Some of you are forced to be here this morning. Maybe by a parent or your spouse is like, no, we're coming. We're going to church today. And you came with them. No matter who you are, no matter where you're at in your story, we're glad you're here. So I'll tell you, like there's different ways that people learn, and sometimes like we learn from the breadcrumbs that God drops, or we can learn from other people's mistakes. We can learn from our own mistakes. Some of us are like God has to hit me upside the head with a baseball bat. That was me. Like for about a decade, I knew the truth of Jesus, and I walked away from Jesus, trying to explore all the different things that would satisfy me other than God, and nothing did, and it left me empty, but I just continued to pursue it, because I'm like, there has to be something out there that's good enough, that's going to fill me enough, that's going to give me what Jesus could give me. And then he broke me, and he's like, you're mine, I'm not letting you go. But I'll tell you, I had to walk through the doors of a church gathering much like this, and I was scared to death to do it. Because I knew the grace of God. I knew that God's mercy, and I knew His truth, but I was assured that if I walked in, that there was something that was going to be projecting from me, like whether it be written on like my presentation, like whatever it is that you guys were going to see about me, that you're going to, all my mistakes, all my sin, all my failures, that you're going to go, he does not belong in here. And so for months, I would come in late, and I would leave early. Like I knew that the pastor, when he started praying, I'm like, okay, let's bolt so nobody gets to see me. But God started doing a work in me. He started working in my heart. And like I knew, and I was excited for Jesus. And so like in here, I was like, Jesus. But out there, it was more like, Jesus. Then my church announced that they were going to do a Bible study, and so they were going to go through the book of Romans on a Tuesday night. And I'm like, well, that's what Christians are supposed to do, right? Like they gather as the church, and we're supposed to read our Bible. So I'm like, okay, I'll go. And if you're familiar with the book of Romans, it starts off with Paul saying to this church of people that are in Rome, 1,500 miles away, he's like, I don't know you. I've heard a lot about you. I've heard some really good things about you, and I want to come. I want to travel because I want to pour into you. I want to meet you. I want to pour into your life with Jesus. And then there's a sentence right at the beginning that creates the whole reason for the book, the whole reason for his desire to go and to meet with these people. As he shares this all-important why, and it wrecked me. It challenged my heart, and it challenged my soul. As he wrote, Romans 1:16, for I am not ashamed of the gospel. I'm not ashamed of the gospel because it is the power of God that brings salvation to everyone who believes. That for at the beginning of that sentence is like a causal statement. It's like you could put because in there, like, hey, I want to go and I want to travel. I'm willing to leave all of this to go and to take a boat and to walk for miles, and so I can pour into you. And he's like, here's the reason why. Because I'm not ashamed of the gospel. Because I'm passionate for what this gospel is and what it can do. But what is the gospel? Now, the gospel it's a word, it's a very Roman word, it's Greek, it's euangelion, and it's a very famous word that was around for hundreds of years before Jesus. And it was very emperor-centric. So the emperor who was on the throne, he was the ruler of Rome, and so whenever like a monumental like scene or whatever happened in his life, there was these events, like there would be news that went out, and a lot of it had to do with like conquests with the military. Like when he would send his armies out, and he would go out into like the war and the battles, and when they would win, he would tell someone, and they would have a person that was a really good runner. Like you have those people, there's some people in our church here in Colorado that like run like a marathon, child's play. 50 miles, 100 miles, like they'll just run and run and run. Like these are those people, they're like the original Coloradans in Rome. And they're runners, and so they would like get the word. And so like the person would say, okay, yeah, we won. And so they would start running. And they would just like do all the things that I cannot do. And they'll go, and for 50, 100, 200 miles, whatever it took, they would go, and we won. He won. Like he won the battle. Like his victory, like he is victorious, and because he is victorious, we are victorious because of his win, like we win. That was the good news. And those people that they would call to be runners to share the good news were called evangelists. To share the good news of victory. The gospel, first and foremost, is a proclamation of victory. The gospel is a proclamation of victory. This gospel of Jesus that Paul is not ashamed of, that he's willing to leave and to travel and to pour into people and to dive into their walk that he doesn't even know. He's like, this is the victory of Jesus. This is the proclamation of Jesus' victory, that he won. He won the battle. He's victorious over the war, but victorious over what? Talked about this on Good Friday, Genesis 3, sin enters the world and breaks everything. From Genesis 3 on, for thousands of years now, we have been trying to win our own battles, to go our own way, to find our own victory, and it leaves us continually finding ourselves empty because it doesn't satisfy. We can't do it on our own. Jesus comes and says, I want to do that for you. I will win the battle that you cannot. So he conquered sin. He conquered death in paying our complete payment on the cross and fulfilling all of the law. And we see that the gospel is not just the gospel of victory, but the gospel is proclamation of power. That the gospel is proclamation of power. Jesus' victorious power is shown, it is proven, it is revealed through his resurrection. You can imagine there for a moment for his disciples and for those who were following him that had given him everything. Like they had taken their chips. They're like, I'm all in. This guy's the promised Messiah. He is our hope. He is our Savior. They're following him. They're everything he is doing, they want to do. Like they're being disciples. They've left everything for him. In that moment, they watched him be tortured, nailed to a cross, and physically die. You can imagine their reaction of like, where is our hope now? So when they get the call and they run to the tomb, they're expecting to find a body. Even though again and again and again, he told them, like, here's what I got to do, guys. Here's what is happening. Here's what's going to happen afterwards. They could not imagine, and even we struggle to understand what Jesus did on the cross. Paul shares with us, but Christ has rescued us from the curse pronounced by the law. When he was hung on the cross, he took upon himself the curse for our wrongdoing. Or in 2 Corinthians, he writes, for God made Christ, who never sinned, to be the offering for our sin so that we could be made right with God through Christ. The work there on the cross was complete. It was done. And then on the third day, he resurrects from the dead, bodily, physically. And when they run to the cross, when they get word, they're like, okay, we got to see this. And they come, and the tomb is empty. And now all of a sudden they see him, and they get to touch him, and they touch his body, and they feel his wounds, and then they eat with him, and they talk with him. He's there at the shoreline, and he's like, come, let's have some breakfast. And then he says, I got some news that I want you to share. I want you to go. And so now they run out to the world and they're like, he's won. He's won. Like victory is his and his victory is ours because he wins. We win. That's a proclamation of victory and of power. It says, I'm not ashamed of the gospel because it is the power of God to bring salvation. The gospel of Jesus is good news. It's the proclamation of God's power to save. That Jesus not only is victorious over the power of sin, he is victorious over the effects of sin. That there in Genesis 3, when all things were broken, as sin entered into the world, like what was broken is our relationship between us and God. Where once there was safety and intimacy between man and God, now that safety and intimacy went away. There's separation, and that caused, like between us, like struggle of safety and intimacy. That was broken, and now there's danger, and there's like now all in our hearts as well, inside of us, like that brokenness happens where we don't feel safe, and we're hurt, and we're struggling. And today we still feel the consequences of that. The brokenness in our world, inside, with each other, and with God. When Jesus says, I come to save that. I've come to do the work that you couldn't do. I've come to be victorious over sin and the effects of sin. So now you can be restored to God, and now there can be safety and intimacy between you and God. And in that, it changes our relationship. That what was broken between us, now we can find safety and community and healing. And as we grow in Jesus and we pursue God, we can find healing in our own hearts, that what was broken inside of us now can be whole. At this church, we call this, we want to learn together and grow together as we think, love, and live like Jesus. That we believe as we are restored to God, then we start learning about who Jesus is. We want to live like Jesus so that we can find true and authentic community and we can heal inside of ourselves. Verse 17, he continues, he says, for the gospel is the righteousness of God revealed. For in the gospel is the righteousness of God is revealed. A righteousness that is by faith from first to last, that it's always by faith. As it is written, the righteous will live by faith. So the gospel is a proclamation of righteousness. Now, let me define this. Righteousness refers to God's perfect standard. Perfect in conduct, perfect in morality, perfect in justice, and that's played out in how we live and what we do and how we say things and our attitudes and every word that we say. And I can tell you right now, I can't do that. I do not live up to the righteousness of God. I don't have the power to. I don't have the ability to. And I think all of us, I want you to hear this, that as we hear about the gospel of righteousness, this is probably the thing that I struggle with the most. And maybe you're like me. Because the proclamation of the gospel is not that I'm righteous enough for God, but that God gives us his righteousness. That Jesus, who lived a perfect life, when we come to faith in him, he offers us his righteousness, and we receive it by faith. Like he places his perfect righteousness on us. Now here's what this means. It means you don't have to get your act together before you come to God. It means you don't have to continue to beat yourself up or feel ashamed when you're like, oh, I messed up again. It means that God is not ashamed of you. It means that our righteousness that he gives us is not because of our faithfulness, because of our faith. It is a free gift that he gives us, and it's complete. It is the complete righteousness of God that comes by faith. But faith is not about knowing the right facts. Faith is not understanding the claims that even the Bible makes. It's not going, okay, yeah, I know that Jesus lived. I know that he died and resurrected. That's not faith. Faith is trust. Faith is having complete reliance on the person and the work of Jesus. It's saying, Jesus, I trust you. Jesus, I am completely reliant on you for who you are, for what you have done, that you are victorious. I'm relying on your victory. I am relying on your power. I am relying on your righteousness to make me right with God. When we do that, that changes everything.
My relationship with Jesus now has done a complete 180. It's a big priority in my life. It's important for me and for my husband and our kids, for all of us to have that relationship. I think one way that God worked in our lives is we all got baptized as a family this year in January, and that was a really important day. I think for me to grow as a Christian, I needed a teacher. I wanted a teacher for my kids too, and I think that we've all found that here at Mountainview.
And yeah, so for me, it's just been a renewed sense of like peace and the right, what I believe to be framework to look at life. And, in a world where everything's just me, and my feelings and my money and my work and my problems, it's nice to go to church where it's all just about gratitude and saying thank you for everything you're doing for us.
For me, it's really, really fun. I would say my husband would agree, watching the kids. So it was probably like 2 or 3 weeks after our first visit with Mountain View that my son was like kind of asking about prayer. So I had just asked him, I said, can I pray for you? And he started sobbing. And it was a really special moment, just me and him. And for me, it's so cool. And I think that's what my parents felt, is seeing them grow. It makes me want it even more too.
Sometimes I cannot explain it. It's just, it was something that happened deeply with me, and it was like, whoa, like a aha moment. And I said, this is a decision that I'm making on my own, and I want to do it. So yeah, that's when I decided. I thought that was the right time. So this is the way I see it, where I look up and every single day do my best to connect with him, to get educated about the character of Jesus, and to share the love for him with others.
There were a few things right after that were like huge, just answered prayers. In hospital and in like the acute rehab, they asked what my goal was. And I said, and I couldn't actually even voice it fully because it made me choke up too much, is that I wanted to be able to pick up my kids again, like physically lift them up again. And then now I did reach that goal and I could pick them up. And like spiritually, I think we had like the blessing that even though everything had changed and things were really hard, there was never a time where we doubted that God was there. Like sometimes our head can know that that is true and hold on to that even if our heart is struggling with seeing it.
Shortly after this happened, God just really gave me a couple of songs to cling on to. And so Toby Mac, an artist who lost his son, he wrote an album in the time period after that about dealing with the loss of his son. And one of the songs, Faithfully, really just hit me where I was, and very obviously continue to be where, he says that I'll never be the same man, but I'm a man who still believes, because when I cried out to you, Jesus, you were there faithfully. And I can attest to that regardless of how easy or difficult life is, God is still good, and He's still in control. And both those things are true, regardless of my circumstance.